Antarctica number 10 ends the series with gunfights, last-minute saves, weird entities from unknown dimensions, and a race to save Hannah from an unknowable fate. We're going to talk about it right here in our review. See you in 3. And welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is our review of Antarctica number 10 from Image Comics. But before we get started, please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell for notification. Your attention is greatly appreciated. Make sure you stay tuned to the end for the final score. Let's talk about the credits. This issue is written by Simon Burks with art by Willie Roberts, who also does the coloring and the main cover A, and letters are delivered by Lyndon White. Before we dig into the main issue, let's talk about what happened in issue number 9 so we kind of catch up and make sure that we're starting from the same place. So we figured out 15 years in the past from the present that Hannah's father, Jerome Curtis, was a research scientist at one of the Antarctic ice stations that are situated outside of this fracture that allows the multiverse of dimensions of different Earths to cross over or interact with each other in some capacity or way. We also learned that the scientists who run this research station have been picking up multiple Hannahs from across the multiverse and performing experiments on them for some unknown purpose or for some end goal that was never explained. Dr. Curtis was sick of trying to use these innocent little girls for experimentation, and he made a secret deal with a group of, I guess what you would call rebels, to invade the base before they got too far out of hand. And in the crossfire, Dr. Curtis is shot. The one Curtis girl, the one Hannah Curtis girl, escapes, and she's running through the base to try and find some way out or find safety. And another Hannah Curtis is trapped inside a stasis tube for future testing. When the Hannah Curtis that's running around free comes into contact with the fracture, when there is a gunfight confrontation with Simons, she gets entrapped or encased in this sort of blue crystalline shell. And that's where we leave off with issue number 9. So we pick up then with Antarctica number 10. The issue starts off with Hannah, the one that's encased in the blue crystalline shell after coming into contact with the fracture, waking up with the sound of shouting. She imagines that she wants to get out of the shell, and then she blips, and the whole shell with her in it teleports to another part of the station. And then when she thinks about it again, it blips again and teleports to another part of the station. So through mental commands or asking, if you will, she's able to teleport around. And then at the last minute, she says, okay, I want out of the shell. And then it blips her out. And the blue shell sort of turns into kind of this wisp of smoke or something and flies away because she wants it to lead her to her father, who is Jerome Curtis, who's still outside the station and dying in the snow after being shot during the gunfight from the previous issue. Dr. Gahal goes out and grabs a med kit, and she races out into the snow to try and help Jerome Curtis. She runs into the rebels, who give her a hard time, but eventually let her pass. Dr. Gahal finds Jerome dying in the snow. She tries to revive him, has a med pack. It doesn't work. And Hannah comes up and finds them together, and they all believe that he's dead. But when Hannah cries out in anguish and pain, that blue wispy smoke thing that she was encased in comes down and heals him. Now the three of them are reunited and together, but they realize they have to go inside and stop Simons from taking the other Hannah, who's in a stasis chamber, to the fracture to do something. I don't know what. So they run inside. They find some roundabout ways to get down to the lowest levels that have been sealed off due to an accident that happened even years before. And when they enter one of the main research labs that had been sealed off, they find large blue swirly entities that may be the same as the blue smoky thing that encased Hannah Curtis in a crystalline shell. Not quite sure, because they look a little bit different, but they're blue, so maybe it's the same thing. They eventually work their way over to where Simons has the stasis chamber, because she's trying to guide it into the fracture, with possibly the understanding that maybe by entering the fracture with one of the Hannahs, that somehow that will protect her from being killed going to the fracture. Not quite sure. There is a fight. There's a gun battle. And at the last minute, Jerome sort of emits some of that blue energy that was used to heal him, and it winds up killing Dr. Simons. Now, Hannah, who was in the stasis chamber, is safe. The other Hannah, who is running around free, stays with Dr. Gahal, and Jerome puts on I guess, a containment suit, and it looks like possibly he's going to go through the fracture. We don't know. And at the last minute, we see that one of the rebels that he's was working with or had communicated with is Matteo Esposito, who we saw from the first arc, but 15 years in the past. And then the issue just ends, and that is the end of the series according to the solicited information. What do we like about Antarctica number 10? Lots of fast-paced action, definitely some creative developments, twists and turns that you're not going to expect, and the issue leaves a lot of things open as far as where potentially a part 2 of the series or another version of the series or a future development of the series can take place. But yeah, there's a lot happening. It's very edge of your seat, fast-paced, dramatic action taking place all in one shot. So at the very least, it's certainly not boring. What didn't we like about Antarctica number 10 from Image Comics? Okay, so here's where it gets a little tough, because nothing is explained, nothing is confirmed, nothing is resolved, and you have and all the threads that were built up to this point are just left. You don't know what happened to adult Hannah Curtis. You don't know who the person was that she met at the end of the first arc. You don't know what Dr. Simons was trying to do with the fracture. You don't know what Jerome is doing with the one of the Hannahs that's in the encasement, in the containment chamber. Nothing. You get nothing. The story just ends. There's no resolution to almost anything. You have no idea what happened. You don't know why anybody was doing anything, and you don't know. It just stops. The story just stops with all of these plot threads just left dangling in the middle of nowhere, with no proper ending, with no resolution, with no sense of clarity about where you're going. The cliffhanger or the to be continued piece from the first arc is just completely forgotten. It's as if Simon Burks just said, well, we're just going to stop the story right here because we don't feel like going forward. Okay, that's an approach. That's one way to do it, but it's not a story. It's just you set up these things without explaining any of it, and you don't resolve anything. What happened to the second Earth where that was overpopulated? What happened? Where did the third Earth team come from? And where did they go? And what happened to them? Nothing is explained. Nothing is resolved. Nothing moves forward. Is there going to be a part 3? Is there going to be more? The solicits all say this is the series finale. This is the end. Well, if this is truly the end, why didn't you end the story? All you did was stop in the middle of a random point, which is the biggest problem with the series so far. You had the ideas are there. It's an interesting concept, but all you had is an idea. The execution, if you look back at it as a sum total, is just so random and poor and frustrating. I mean, you almost have to look at this and say, you got great art, you have a great concept, but it's almost like if he forgot to write. Simon Burks forgot to write down an outline to say, okay, here's the beginning, here's your middle, and here's the end, and we'll leave it a little bit open under this so we can tell more stories. But you get none of that. It's just things sort of happen in random directions without explanation or context, and it just stops in the middle of nowhere. I wouldn't even. This doesn't even qualify as an ending, and it's super frustrating and almost. If you spent money on this and figuring that the story was eventually going to wrap up and go somewhere, I hate to disappoint you, it doesn't, which is a problem. So, I mean, if there's just any down point to say, what didn't we like about Antarctica number 10? It's just that you don't even have a story here. You have ideas that are just cobbled together in some kind of weird hodgepodge, but without any cohesion or sense of clarity or direction or purpose. It almost doesn't qualify as a story. And that's a problem. So let's calm down a little bit, and we're going to switch gears to talk about the art. If there's anything that is consistently good to even great about this series, it's Willie Roberts' art. The character designs look great, especially the sci-fi futuristic elements of the costumes and the settings. It all looks fantastic. This feels like a very grounded, almost realistic world that you could believe is possible. You could very easily see from the visuals how this could be adapted into a film or a miniseries or some kind of a live action version of the show. Obviously, they need a much better revision on the scripts, but art wise, it's all there and it feels very authentic to the story that Simon Brooks is trying to tell. Final thoughts: Antarctica number 10 ends the series with lots of great action, lots of great energy and pacing, and interesting ideas with really great art. Unfortunately, the story just ends on nothing. There is no resolution, there's no ending. There are mountains of plot threads that don't get any resolution, and this story just effectively just went nowhere. These are ideas. It doesn't even qualify as a story, and that's a bummer. Therefore, we're going to give Antarctica number 10 from Image Comics a 5.5 out of 10. It's as high as it is because of the art, but it's as low as it is because of the writing. Sorry, Simon. This was inadequate, and it pains me to say it, but it's the truth. All right, well, what do you think about sci-fi stories that involve multiverses and alternate realities and scientific experiments that seem to go haywire? I want to hear your comments and your thoughts about this particular series if you're reading it, or if not, what kind of sci-fi you like. Otherwise, please stay tuned through the outro for the next review.